Welcome to the Sports Show with Bob Spino. Finally, the Final Four is here, and may, by the grace of all that is sacred and holy in all of creation, may we please not have a repeat champion this year, Bob. I want a newly crowned champion. So, what were your thoughts of the Elite Eight, my friend?
Well, I didn't believe in Clemson, and they're out. And I did believe that NC State was going to beat Duke, and it happened because Duke can't shoot, and if you can't shoot, you don't win. So, and I told you they're a terrible foul shooting team. Um, K would have never tolerated that. And they were lucky that they won against Houston. The guard got hurt late in the first half. That's the only reason they won. Uh, and they had an easy bracket. That's why they got as far as they got. I mean, you bragged about the ACC, and they actually hit the road pretty hard. I should have said they drove off the road and pretty hard. But yeah, I just went with what I saw, and I was at a lot of these games. I went to the Big East tournament. I went to the first round of the NCAA. Couldn't win to Boston this past weekend, and I can actually go to the Final Four. But um, I can't see anybody beating Connecticut. My friend Rob said, I'm sorry, Rob. My friend Steve said that he thinks NC State has a good chance if they play him because you can just pull the center out with the center they have, and then just put pressure the guards a little bit. But I can't see anybody beating them. I just don't. I just don't.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of this NC State Purdue matchup. Again, NC State is such an anomaly, and the ACC did get a team in the Final Four, unlike the Pac-12, Bob. But
Uh,
anyways, so uh, there's such an anomaly. I don't. It's going to be tough to when we go over that matchup to decide who's going to win. But their bigs are dangerous. They have three solid bigs, NC State, and uh, they've seemed to be up to the challenge to every challenge they faced so far. So I don't know if Purdue's going to win that game, honestly. I mean, NC State, once they took control of the Duke game, they never relinquished. They were the clearly superior team.
yeah, you know what? I do think Purdue's going to take them. It seems like NC State plays really good every other game, and then the game in between they'll play okay. And so far, okay's worked. I just don't know if that's going to work now that they got to play really good teams. I kind of think Purdue's going to get them because they got the center to match NC State center, who's really good, by the way. And my brother said he didn't think he was that good in the beginning, but this guy reminds me of Barkley and Dave Cowens. He's 6'9". He's a load. He's got a great touch around the basket. The guy for NC State I'm talking about, and he's really hard to stop, let alone move. So yeah, I think Tony's having trouble getting in.
Well, he does need if you can hear us, Tony, you're muted and your camera is not on.
Yeah, put your camera on. There you go. We got him.
He is
How's it
on.
going,
So,
Dan?
yeah, we hear you,
Yep.
Tony. You see here everything okay?
Yeah, good. I'm just listening. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is the part we immediately state that Bob is the only one of the three of us that got all the elite games right in picks. Round of
When
applause for Bobby.
yeah, when you're perfect, you're perfect. What can you say?
Well, no,
Nothing
it's
you can
not.
do about it.
Yeah, it's not about that. It's I saw Duke and I just didn't believe in them. They weren't scoring, and they weren't a good foul shooting team. And I've heard that one of their best players is a little bit unusual. Let's just leave it at that. Somebody told me that the other day, weirdly enough, and I just put it this way: Coach K would have never tolerated the stuff he did, and I'll leave it at that. But I don't know. But all that aside, they just couldn't score. And if you're not going to score, then how the heck are you going to win? I mean, I thought NC State could beat them. I do like that center. He reminds me of Barkley. He really does. And Dave Cowens, because he's a load, Anth, but he's also got a great touch. Like he can really shoot once he gets close to that basket, and he's got little post moves. He can drive to the right and drive to the left when he gets close. He's hard to stop. But I think that Purdue has the guy to stop him now, though, because he is really tough underneath. So it should be interesting. It's going to be a great game. I know my friend Steve said he thinks NC State, if they got into the finals against UConn, and he was telling me on the phone, I talked to him the other day. He's like, he finally called when because they went to Boston this past weekend. And he's like, Bob, since I coach, I can tell you that if they pressure the guards for Connecticut and with the man in the middle that NC State has, they may be able to beat them. But I just think NC State has they don't have enough answers for Connecticut. Connecticut just can beat you so many ways. I just can't see anybody beating them. Just can't. I mean, they did something the other night, 30, they scored 30 points in a row. And I asked Steve about it. It was, Bob, in the second half, I didn't think the San Diego was going to score a point at all for a while because they were trying to pass the ball and kept getting stolen every single time, let alone shoot the ball. And I'm like, oh man. So they really are. Rob, I can't help you out. I kind of think UConn's going to do it again. I'd like to say no because I know how much you hate them, but I can't say that. Like I can't at this
Well,
time.
frankly, I mean, as I look at the Final Four, now it seems apparent to me that Alabama might be the biggest anomaly. I don't even think this is one of his best teams, Nate Oates,
Right.
of what he's done before.
Right.
His other teams were way more hyped, and Clemson basically showed us all that when the opponent gives you their neck, you have to stomp on it. They had a double-digit lead. They could have exploded and turned it up to almost 20 points. But once Alabama got the confidence going, the shots started rolling. They were unstoppable. But again, I don't think they have a chance against UConn. I do predict a
Right.
digit victory for
Uh,
you. But that being said, anything stand out to you in particular in the Elite Eight, Tony?
Well, I mean, you know, I mean, I've never seen, and I've been watching college basketball, I've been involved in it, for a long time. And I've never seen any team, not even John Wooden's UCLA teams, go on a 30-0 run.
right.
That stands out to me. The center, I keep shaking my head. I at North Carolina State, and I'm thinking this kid is out there having fun. He doesn't feel the pressure, and he's just unstoppable around the basket. He's got a
Yeah.
beautiful touch.
Mm-hmm.
That stands out to me. Like you said, Alabama, you don't put a lot of stock in them, but they just keep winning. They get behind and then they catch up, and when they catch up, they don't look back. I mean, they just pull away at the end. I like Purdue. I like their guards. Edie's a beast in the middle. And I don't know if I'm not really sure if Purdue is that good. I've got them in the final game against Connecticut, but I just there's something about them. I think of any team that I could say is beatable, they are.
And apparently Steve agrees with you because he thinks NC State is going to give them all they can handle. So,
Well, I think they can give them all they can handle. The question is, can they beat them? That's the question.
I don't know, and it's because of the
I
center.
I did notice how their NC State's guards shot well from the outside.
Right.
Once they seem to gain confidence and get a little lead, they turn it up a notch and they just bury you. If you don't guard their guys outside, they're going to shoot threes, and if they're making them, they're making them. But it's like any one of these teams, if they have a bad night and they're not making their threes, they aren't going to be Connecticut, because Connecticut doesn't rely on threes. They rely on great coaching, picks, cutbacks, layups, good defense. They're so well coached. I mean, I would say he's the best coach left. I mean, now you got to beat the best team with the best coach. That's going to be pretty hard to do, I think.
Yeah. You know what it is? Connecticut relies on whatever they need on a given night. If you stop them one way, they'll just beat you another. And they do so many different things that it's almost impossible to stop everything.
Well, I mean, that's coaching and that's making adjustments,
Right. Right.
and I think, that's why they're going to, I mean, it's like you're going up against six guys. You're going up against five players and their coach. And
Can
and I'm really big on coaches, as you guys well know, and I make a lot of my picks on guys that I believe will win because they'll outcoach the other guys. So I just think this Connecticut team is unbelievable. Now you saw where their plane got delayed, and they didn't get until 3:15 in the morning in Phoenix.
right.
They had a mechanical problem, which
Oh
isn't
wow.
good.
Right.
Which isn't good, and it's not good for the players because
No.
you got to adjust to the time zone and all of that. But you do get a couple hours back going from the East Coast to the down to Arizona. So, but I don't know. I could see. I easily could see Connecticut and North Carolina State. I keep saying, is this the ghost of Jim Valvano? I mean, this team, but North Carolina State hasn't done this since maybe Jimmy V was the coach. I don't know, but it's going to
And
be hard.
and if you guys remember right, when we talked about Bam, I said not for nothing, but they lead the nation in scoring, and they could. I thought they were going to take out, it was Clemson. I didn't believe in them the whole time. And when you could, I understand Clemson was winning, but I also understand when you got that kind of offense, you're never really winning by that much because they can explode at any given time. And you know, I know they got to play Bama, or I know Bama's got to play Connecticut. I know they won't beat them as a rule, but if they're gonna beat them, the one thing Connecticut's gonna have to play great defense to stop them. Because if they don't, Connecticut really hasn't scored 90 points in any game except the game I was at with the Big East tournament. They're scoring in the 70s and 80s, high 70s, around 80s, low 80s. Bama can do that with their eyes closed because they got the best offense. You're gonna have to score and stop them. And the one thing I would say about Connecticut, they've stopped everybody so far. They're only giving up like 60 points a game, give or take. So they got to do that with Bama because if they don't, then that's going to be a really tight game. And like I said, Bama can score. And I mean, they got two guys. Sears is really good, like really good. But, you know, I think Connecticut's going to have to win this game with defense. And I'm a big guy, I'm a big offensive guy. So, but they're going to have to slow them down because if they don't, they want to play a track meet with them, it could go either way because Connecticut doesn't always score a lot of points. They did, like I said, they did against St. John's, but as a rule, they don't get 90 points. And Bama can score in the 80s. They've done it the whole tournament. They're going to have to slow them down on
Now,
defense.
Bob, do you believe Alabama, of the teams remaining, has the best chance to beat UConn?
That's a good question. Yeah, I do because of offense, I do. Um, the two centers, if Purdue played them, are going to do this. They're going to X each other out. So that's going to come down to the rest of the team, and UConn's got a much better team than Purdue. Yeah, because of the offense. If they're cooking on offense in that game, and they don't, we're making every shot we throw up, basically. They're going to give them a run. Do I think they'll beat them at the end of the day? Probably not. But they're going to make it tight because they can score. And they're the anti-Duke this year. They're scoring. Duke couldn't do that. I mean, what did Duke have? 44 points halfway through the Houston game, and then in the second half, halfway through the second. I mean, that's not Duke. That's for sure. I mean, you gotta score. Offense is everything. Don't believe this garbage about defense all the time. But ironically, this time, because Bam is so good at scoring, Connecticut's going to have to win the thing with defense. Because they
So
don't.
looking back, though, you made some good. I agree with you about if Purdue meets UConn, the centers will neutralize each other.
Yeah.
But I noticed something with Purdue in that last game. They had a bad habit of getting a 7, 8 point lead, and then in a blink, 20 seconds later, that lead would be
Well,
gone. Now
right.
that may be more of a testament to Tennessee than anything else.
Right.
If they do that kind of thing in I think either game, NC State, because NC State really rides momentum strongly. either that or in the final, they're going to lose. I'm also not impressed with Purdue's supporting cast. I think NC
Right.
State has the edge there.
Right.
And I'm going to be very curious because, in my opinion, the Purdue NC State game officiating is going to be key because I thought they called that game extremely tight and really racked up the fouls against Tennessee. And if Big Boy Burns or Diarra starts getting foul trouble, that could clear the way for Purdue to open it up. But that's when we get to the picks, that's going to be that's a tough pick. I'm not as high on Alabama as you. I do think UConn's going to win by double digits.
Okay. Well, I didn't say that UConn wasn't going to win. I said that Alabama can make it real interesting because they can score. If UConn doesn't shut them down on D, and so far they've shut down everybody on D. Okay. But a lot of the games early were against easier teams. So if they can't do that against Bama, then there could be a problem.
So, of the three teams, Tony, which one do you believe has the best chance to take down UConn?
Um,
I was gonna say no.
wow. Uh, the best one to take them down. Um, I think the team that's athletic. I would say because see, I don't consider Purdue athletic. And the
Right.
other thing that I was going to make a point on Edie is Edie can't play 40 minutes without taking multiple rests. And if the other team can take advantage while he's out of the game, they could dig a hole where they can't get out of it. I think their guard, he can really shoot if you leave him open. But I got to tell you, the way North Carolina State is playing, I would say they have, I think they have the best chance to take Purdue out because they're real athletic and their guards can really shoot. Given that, I know Alabama scores a lot of points, and even though I haven't focused on them a lot, uh, I know they're good and I know they're making a great run here. But I don't know. In the past, when I've not given a team a whole lot of looks, they wind up winning the whole thing. And I remember a couple of times the Connecticut won it. I didn't think much of them going into the tournament, and they had to win like 5 games in the ACC in the in their conference, the Big East. And I'm thinking, hell, no way they're going to win 9 games in a row, or 11 games, and they did. So, this is tough. I mean, anybody sustains an injury like Houston did, you're going to lose the game. I just, and this may be the farthest run that, I mean, the buck might stop right here for North Carolina State. I mean, they really don't have the size, but yet this kid, you put him in the middle, and he looks like an offensive guard who could, with the moves of a running back. I mean, the guy is just unbelievable. I mean, I never seen this guy before, but what they've done from the beginning of the season till the end has been phenomenal. I mean,
Right.
they say their coach's job, but basically for 2 more years. I mean, uh, I don't know. I think, and I'll share this with you. In my mind, I told UCLA in '95, there's only one team that could beat us, and that's ourselves. And that's what it would take for somebody to beat Connecticut. They would have to beat themselves.
Right. Just have the worst game ever.
Well, that's beating yourself. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
I mean, having a bad game, doing something stupid the night before, not getting the proper rest, change things that you haven't changed all year, sustain a serious injury. Those are the things that would take them down. Nobody should beat them. They should. The only way is they're going to have to beat themselves. You know.
Hey, Yes, can you move your camera a little bit? Because you're kind of like we can see the ceiling more than anything. Okay. Just move it back so you can focus more centered.
Well, I got it plugged in because I had too much charge on it. So
Okay,
anyway,
that's a little better.
So are we still in consensus that it's probably going to be UConn that wins this thing?
Yes, I am. I think they're going to win. Um, I don't think any of the other three teams can do it. Like I said, though, if there's going to be one team that could possibly do it, it's probably going to be Bama because they score. Purdue, you would think Purdue because of the center, but Connecticut has a center as well. He's not as good as Edie, mind you, but he's big and he
Pretty
can score.
close. 7-2.
Yeah, he's not as good as Edie, no, but he's good. And um, that, like I said, I think this is going to X each other out. So you know what? Bama can score. If they can just have a hot shooting game, only takes one game, you know. And I don't know if I said it to you guys off the air, but now I know why Arizona didn't win. You got to stay away from those threes. 15% at the end of the game, and they're only down 2 points. I mean, you have to stop it. And they had that mentality. Oh, just give me the ball, just make the next shot. No, you never did. It never happened. And that's probably why they lost the games at home. They lost to nobodies. They probably, if you go back and look, I'll bet you that their 3-point shooting on those nights and their foul shooting was garbage. That's my guess. And it's sure as heck as threes for sure. Because that night, it was a week ago. I came out and got in the car, and all of a sudden, Arizona's getting blasted. They cut it to 2 points, and the guy goes, "They're shooting 15% right now from three." I'm like, "Are you kidding?" That's got to stop. I mean, these guys are gonna, and I can't even say it's the coaches here because 3-point shots are so incredibly loved. Every coach teaches it now, which to me is just insane. They're not. There's no more fundamentals.
yeah. Do you need
Actually,
me?
actually, we, it's Hurley actually does a little bit of everything. Danny does. He makes them play basketball.
So you give
And
Hurley the coaching edge over Oates in the game, Nate Oates.
yes,
Oh, he's the number one coach in my mind.
yes,
And that, I don't, watching painter coaches like watching paint dry on the wall.
yeah,
I mean, if it comes down to coaching, nobody's going to outcoach this guy. Now, like I said, maybe they can get a bad call. Maybe it's very hard to go through the tournament, win 6 games, and win them all by double figures. So you're always going to have a close game. Sometimes you're going to have a game that you should have lost, and you pull it out, and then you wind up winning the tournament. So, I'm okay if UConn won by 2 points. I'm okay with if they won by 9 and not double figures. But I don't know if any team back-to-back years has beaten everyone by double figures. And I think right now they're on that roll. They're on that possibility of they do 2 more games in double figures. Well, I don't know anybody has done that. So,
that's a pretty good indicator that they're going to win it. Nobody's even coming close to beating them. They're just blowing everybody out. So
yeah.
it would take an amazing game, a perfect.
Yeah, I mean, somebody might have a good
take
half
one.
against them, but they ain't gonna beat them for 40 minutes. Not like
No.
that. No.
See, and you know what? Honestly, Bama could pull that perfect game the way they shoot, but they'd have to shoot great the whole game, start to finish. You know what I'm saying? They can't let up this much because if they do, Connecticut's got you.
Yeah.
They're that kind of good. Sorry to disappoint you, Rob. I know how much you hate them, but
Well, I'm still holding out hope. There's still 2 chances to stop them. All is not lost. And with that said, let's do our Final Four picks, and maybe you guys can talk about the opening week of baseball a little bit before we wrap up.
okay.
UConn, Alabama. I'm gonna go with UConn double digits. How about you guys?
UConn. Pretty much.
I'm good. I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then NC State, Purdue. I think again, I can't. I see. I don't
not going
see.
against your
I
conference,
perceive
Bob. I know
the spirit of Jim Valvano here, and I think NC State's going to clip them. I don't think Edey's going to get the calls that he got in Tennessee, and the three bigs on NC State are going to cause trouble, and the support cast of NC State will override Purdue's support cast.
Anthony, you want to go?
Go ahead.
You want to go next?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I think that Purdue will win the game. They're just a little too. Edey's just too good, and I'm not saying the kid in NC State because I've been a big fan of his the whole tournament. But I think this time he's gonna. The thing about NC State is they'll play a really good game, which they did the last time, and then the time before they played an okay game and got away with it. But you got to remember, NC State is still not a great team. So Purdue's been better all year, and I think Purdue will snip them. I really do. It'll be close, but they'll beat them.
I mean, Edey's got he's 7 inches taller than DJ
Right.
Burns. Burns
Right.
only 6'9".
Right.
That's probably going to play a factor.
Right. Anthony, what do you think?
I think this will be the closest game of the Final Four and the championship game. So I'm going with Purdue.
Mhm.
I'm going to go with the big guy Edey. He's just a beast down low. If they lose this game, it wouldn't surprise me because everybody in this tournament who I picked, who I thought their coaches stunk or were very below average, have lost so far. And I'm not a big fan of Painter. If Painter didn't have Edey, he wouldn't even be in the tournament.
Well, sometimes you know what? Sometimes you get the players. It doesn't matter about the coach. Some players will play and win regardless of the coach.
Purdue's got to watch out those turnovers. Steve Lapis pointed it out on the broadcast. They lose when they turn it over, and NC State's been turning people over.
Yep, they do. I would not be surprised, Rob, if NC State beats them. It wouldn't shock me at all. It would be just another feather in my cap that here's another coach in my mind who can't coach. He can't get it done. He can't get it done in the big moment.
So by no means do I believe it. As I pick NC State here, I don't. It's not a lock. I could absolutely see Purdue win this game. I think it's going to be close too.
So
I just think officiating is going to play a big part. If it's like Tennessee, NC State's in big trouble.
Okay, so we got 2 Purdue's and a Connecticut. I'm sorry,
Purdue's in Connecticut, and we'll save the
Connecticut.
We're gonna do it on Sunday. We're gonna preview the final game, whatever that is. So
right,
I know what you guys are gonna pick. I'm saving it for that game. Any other comments on the Final Four before I open it up a little bit about the opening week of baseball?
There's really not much more to say because Connecticut's really kind of keeping debates to a minimum because they're so good. I mean, what are you going to say? They're going to win. Okay, debate over. It would now if Bama would go out there and take them out, that would open up everything. Everything would be different. But there's not much more to say. Connecticut is just taking no prisoners.
Yeah, I don't think Alabama replicates the run they put on Clemson where they just went unconscious.
Yeah.
I can't remember the guy's name. He just went off. I mean, they made everything. I don't see it happening. I think you're going to see Brick City.
Yeah, me too. I agree. I totally agree. Okay, Rob, you want to talk baseball?
Well, before we get to baseball, I have to share this with you guys because my young lady is a great friend. This Caitlin Clark is phenomenal.
Okay.
She's the best. And Stephen A. even said today that game was like Magic Johnson playing Larry Bird. I think I beat him to that. I think he heard me and he used it. Mm-hmm. But anyway, because I don't want somebody to butt in and say, how come you're not talking about the women's? Let me tell you, the women's Final Four is going to be very, very good. And Caitlin, whether she wins or loses, she's one of the greatest female basketball players I've ever seen. And I've seen a few, and you can't say anything bad about her. She shoots threes like Steph Curry. I mean, she can dribble and pass and find the open person. She makes very little turnovers, very little mistakes. She's tough underneath. She's got strong legs. She's got an unbelievable range, and I hope for her and for the Iowa Hawkeyes that they can win it all. You know, I hope.
You know what the problem is? It's the wrong year because South Carolina's a monster. I don't know if they're going to be able
That's
to.
right. And they're probably going to wind up playing them. And I've seen South Carolina enough in close games, and they know how to win. They are tough.
Mm-hmm.
But even given that,
I gotta say, I hope they win. I actually do hope they win.
I'll be an even bigger fan of Caitlin Clark's if they knock out UConn. Believe me.
Me too. Me too.
Well,
it would be nice to see no UConns in the finals.
Right.
Yeah, I don't see that being a problem. I really believe that this girl is without question. I think even if they don't beat South Carolina, there's nobody on that team better than her. Nobody. Now, her supporting cast may not have enough depth, but I'm going to tell you, nobody can beat her. Nobody in college basketball, women's, and maybe even men are as good as Caitlin Clark.
What a dream scenario for the NC State Wolfpack fan base with both men and women in the Final Four.
Right, they both are. Yep.
Yeah.
Were you glad Iowa beat LSU, Anth?
I was very happy because I think LSU and their coach needed to be humbled a little bit,
right,
in a big moment.
She was out of control, actually.
Well, she always is. Yeah, she still is.
Right.
But I was very happy for Caitlin. I was very happy for Iowa. Was there a little revenge there? Oh, there's always a little inside of you because you don't want to lose twice. But they made sure they didn't lose that game. I got to tell you.
Right.
Yeah, they played phenomenal. The shots she made were just unbelievable. I mean, the passes and the plays and the steals and I would love for them to win it all. I mean, Connecticut's won 11 times. They're the all-time winner of either men or women's sports.
Really? You didn't win 11? That's funny.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. But they've been in 23 Final Fours.
Right.
Yeah, they've been the supreme juggernaut, but I think that's eroding. I think parity is starting to creep in the women's.
Yeah, that's the thing, Rob. You know what? The one thing about girls basketball is the good teams it's almost like rich and poor. The good teams are extremely rich and everybody else is extremely poor. So it's extremely easy to keep if you keep getting the players like they did. Who's going to challenge you? It's like playing.
And I don't think Gino Armietta is going to coach too much longer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the thing. Now the women are doing the NIL transfer portal, mercenary madness too. That's at play.
Well, you know what? I can make the argument that people make about the NBA because in the old days they're like, oh, there's only a few teams, nobody was that good. Celtics had everybody. Well, it's kind of like that in girls basketball. Only a few teams have all the good players. So if you're going to make that argument, then you got to make it against theirs. It's easier to win when you got nobody playing against you. A lot. And that's true.
So I'm actually going to call an audible and scratch the MLB talk for another show. We can dedicate a whole show to opening baseball. But I'm going to now I got to I have to pose a question to you all. What's your Final Four picks for the women then? We got NC State against South Carolina and UConn, Iowa.
Well, I think South Carolina. How could you go against them? We're 36-0. And you said Iowa and
UConn.
UConn. You know what? I was a 1 seed. Yeah, I'm gonna pick them. But the thing about UConn, they weren't supposed to get as far as they've gotten, and they do know how to win. And like Tony said, they have a great coach. So, yeah. And then I think at the end, I was gonna end up playing South Carolina, and I'm rooting for Iowa. But I don't think they're going to win. I think Carolina will end their little dream season. But I would love to see it. I really would. You know, I've heard a lot of good things about Caitlin. She's actually a really nice person, from what I understand. So, and that I like, because there's a lot of other players in all leagues that aren't really that good or that nice. So, I'm kind of rooting for her. It's kind of a nice story, really.
Yeah, I'm
So,
rooting
yeah,
for Caitlin Clark too, and I see both one seed South Carolina, Iowa facing off the final. Uh,
right. Hmm.
this the UConn team's great, but they're not at that supreme elite status that we've seen in the past.
Yeah, but you keep saying it, but they keep winning.
Well, I mean,
Well,
they've been in the Final
they've got
Four,
their
but they haven't steamrolled everyone by 30 every game.
Well, they're not going to do what the men did because they don't have that kind of team anymore. But they keep winning. They just beat SC. They were a one seed. I mean, I don't know.
well, they've
So
gotten
you're
their
picking
best
UConn,
player.
Bob? Is that what you're saying?
Huh?
You're going to pick UConn in the women's too?
No, no. I
Okay.
picked South
You're going
Carolina,
with Iowa. Okay.
but I want Iowa to win. I want Iowa to win, but I
You
think
believe they will beat
Carolina's going
UConn though?
to. Hmm?
You believe Iowa? Are you picking
Yes.
Iowa over UConn publicly?
Yeah, yeah, but it's
Public
going to be
pick.
close because I don't rule anything out with UConn. Even the girls, I don't. Like they probably should have been out by now, and yet they're picking teams off that are pretty good. So
Well, that's because they got their best player back. She was
okay,
hurt all year. They got their best player back, and she's a great player, a
right.
great player. Um, you know, and
Somebody
you're gonna have, huh? And you're
somebody
gonna have,
told me that there was 8 players that were hurt at one time in Connecticut, and here they are. They're still hanging around.
yeah.
It's pretty damn impressive, really.
Oh, very impressive. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
coaching matters in the women's game too. I mean, Gino is
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
legend.
yeah,
It matters. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So who do you
Um,
got, Tony, for your Final Four picks for the women?
well, my heart goes with Caitlin uh, but I know that South Carolina is going to be a real tough. They don't really blow teams out, but they beat them. They know they. I really respect them because when they go on the road and win big games close, and they come from behind and win them, how are you going to? I mean, they're going to. I mean, they're going to beat them. I think it's going to. If they lose to Iowa, I think the pain and the disappointment is going to be much greater because they're undefeated
Right,
than if they weren't undefeated.
right.
If they had a loss or two and they lost, it's okay. You lost, you're disappointed, but you knew that it could happen. This team doesn't believe it can happen, you know, and they play that way. I think she's a really good coach. I mean, you lose your starting five to the WNBA and you come back next year and you're 36-0 and you're going into the Final Four.
Yeah.
What a coaching job that is. I mean,
Mhm.
portal or no portal, she still put this team together and coached. So, they're not out there throwing the ball up on their own. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be Iowa versus South Carolina, and unfortunately, I'm hoping that it turns out for Iowa, but I wouldn't put my money against South Carolina. Yeah. It's like not. It's like
What about
betting
you, Bob?
against. It's like betting against the men's Connecticut team.
Right
You know,
now?
right
What
now.
Yeah,
about you,
I
Rob?
don't see South Carolina losing. I think they
Yeah,
will win it all.
yeah,
I mean, the proof's in the pudding. They're right there, and they haven't lost. And again, the best players and best coaches make it to the end, and here we are. And I think Caitlin will get hers. She's going to score a ton of points. She's going to be a star, but you need more star power to take down an undefeated team.
yeah, yeah. That's right.
And you got to remember one thing about the women's: the last 5 years in a row, a different team has won it.
Interesting. That's interesting because for the longest time that wasn't the case. Connecticut was winning every year, but yeah, pretty much every year. Wow,
So we'll
that's
see
good.
what
Maybe more
happens,
players.
gentlemen. Any closing thoughts on the Final Fours before we depart?
Well,
I hope nobody's playing like the Mets do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go Tigers, my new favorite team, and the Dodgers. They're playing great, Anth. You got to admit, right?
Oh yeah,
What's the
seven and
record
two,
now? What's the record?
7-2.
Beautiful. No, it should be 8-1. Though they should have won that extra inning game against the Cardinals. They had it.
Yeah, right, right.
No, they did. They had it. They blew it.
Good.
Yeah,
There'll definitely be, yeah, we're gonna get into baseball for sure. I
yeah.
have a lot of questions for you guys for baseball, but we'll get
Listen,
that'll be for next week, definitely.
right.
Yeah.
Also, we're gonna do an NFL preview.
So what we got upcoming for shows, we're gonna on Sunday, we're gonna broadcast a championship tournament preview show.
Right,
And then the following week, we're going to do opening segue for MLB, how the
right,
opening game, 10 games, 12 games have gone.
right.
Then soon after that, we will be doing NBA and NHL playoff
Right.
previews,
Playoffs.
and
Yeah.
also be doing a NFL draft, post-draft review, and we will have guests joining us for those shows.
Okay.
Okay. And just want to say this show couldn't go on without you two guys. You're doing a fabulous job. I appreciate you letting me come on. And I hope more and more people start watching and viewing this and you get more interest, you know. So
Hey,
good
three's the
job,
company,
guys.
Tony. Hop on anytime.
Thank you.
Yep, and good job. Good job.
Thanks.
All right. So, Bob, anything else before we depart?
No, I think we covered it. I mean, it's pretty much UConn men, South Carolina women. I mean, if that doesn't happen, then we're gonna have to go back on and do a lot of talking about a lot of things because that's gonna be like a major upset. And can Bama beat them? No, but can they play them tough if they're shooting really well and give them a run? You bet. So far, no one's given them a run though, and that's kind of UCLA dominant of the '70s. They just didn't mess around. It's like we're beating you, we're better, and that's it. And that's pretty much where we are right now. I mean, they're just amazing. I mean, they really are. And the girls are the
I,
same way.
I'd like to see Connecticut win another 7 in a row.
I'm sure you would. I like to see the Dodgers win for the next 5 years too, but that's just me.
Well, they keep winning. They keep winning 100 games a year, but they don't win the World Series.
Yeah, I know, but they've got a much better team this time. Otani can swing things, you know.
Mhm.
I like how the sibling rivalry seems to play out most strongly in baseball.
Yes.
The baseball
Well,
jabs keep coming.
because that was our. I mean, my dad taught us both. That was our first love of sports. Baseball was everything when we were little. So,
Hey, we'll let you guys have at it when we get into the baseball show. But with
Right.
that, folks, you know the deal. You know the drill. Talk, share, like, and subscribe. The Sports Show with Bob Spino. Signing off. This is Rob. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
good night, everybody.